Is there a doctor in the house?
Doctor, you have a visitor in the main lobby.
Hello and welcome to the To Th3 Doc podcast, where we get candid about the real cyber risks that most business leaders underestimate and why ignoring them doesn't make them go away. I'm your host, Steve the Dr. Meek, and the doctor is in. Our guest today is a special guest. Actually, he's an in-house guest, David Johnson. He's our VP of Sales and Marketing, and I thought I'd do something a little bit different today and bring him on the broadcast and talk to him a little bit more. So welcome, David.
Thanks, Steve. Looking forward to it.
Hey, well, before we get started, can you talk a little bit more about yourself? Give some of the audience a little bit more insight into you and kind of where you spend your time.
Sure. Yeah. I've been in the IT world for about 30 years. So that makes me 39 now. And I've been in the managed IT space for about 20 years and been working with you for a long time as well. So kudos for both of us for hacking it out. So
well, and I think kudos for you for just being so tolerant.
Exactly, for both of us probably. But personally, I like to play golf, spend time with family, travel, and just try to enjoy the world what we have. So.
Hey, live in the moment. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yes, sir.
Well, like every podcast, I like to get started by understanding some numbers. I'm a metrics-driven person. The first thing that I usually ask people is something I call the pulse. So to me, the pulse is kind of what's the current state of your particular topic around cybersecurity?
I think the big thing that we're seeing is that cybercrime isn't just a big business problem. 43% of all attacks now target SMBs. And that one breach can cost a small business $140,000 or more on average. And the scary stat is that 60% of businesses close within 6 months of a major cyber incident.
Wow, 140,000. That's probably more than you spend on golf in a year almost.
Close.
It's still under the bar.
Right.
So out of that stat, I mean, what's, obviously smaller organizations don't have the same budget that big organizations have. What's your comment to people that just look at that number and just go, wow, that's such a huge number. How do I even do anything?
Right. Well, I think, the common misconception is that, hey, we're too small. Nobody's going to target us, And, the reality is that small businesses are a prime target because exactly what you said, because there's limited budgets. They have weaker defenses. So.
Gotcha. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to heart rate. I think of, what's something performance related to your topic.
Well, we talked about the average cost of the breach. Some other things that we've seen is that only a small percentage of small businesses even carry cyber insurance to mitigate risk. SMBs also are seeing the fact that AI is raising the threat level, making it easier for cyber criminals to craft very believable, phishing emails and other things that make it harder for small businesses to protect themselves.
So what's the challenge for them having cyber insurance? Is it an effort, energy, a cost? What do you typically hear from people?
I think a lot of it is that concept that they don't think they're going to get hit, right? And so they don't understand what the actual risk is. They don't think they're going to be a target. They don't necessarily hear from a lot of their other business owner friends because they're too embarrassed to admit it, or they might have been told by counsel, don't say anything about it. And so they just assume that they're not. But, unfortunately, 1 in 3 of SMBs have suffered an attack in the past year. And so it's not getting any better.
Wow. 1 in 3. That's the old look at your business friend on the left and your business friend on the right, and one of you is going to get hit. So
right.
you got to figure that out.
Absolutely.
Now, as far as cyber insurance, are there certain things that you're telling people who are dealing with that cyber insurance quandary, other than the hey, you should get some? What else are you talking to people about when it comes to?
I think the first one is that every small business should have cyber insurance. That's number one. Number two, they need to understand that when they get coverage, that coverage is conditional upon them meeting the required controls that the cyber insurance carrier requires. That's things like multi-factor authentication, but that might be more specific than just, hey, do you have MFA? They're going to say, what systems do you have protected by multi-factor authentication? They're going to require you to have a more advanced endpoint protection on your computers, not just traditional antivirus. They're going to want to know about your backups, and they're going to want to know that you're documenting what your actual cybersecurity practices are.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. All insurance is, it's predicated upon the coverage, and what exactly the expectation is. The more you have, that's great, but it sounds like you never want to overspeak what you actually have in place, and just be specific as possible.
Absolutely, and I always try to tell business owners that the worst cyber insurance is that cyber insurance where you don't meet the required controls, and then you get attacked, and then you find out, no, your coverage is going to be denied because you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Now, are there any new trends in cyber insurance that we're fresh into 2026, but did you notice anything new in 2025, or new asks, or new challenges around getting coverage?
I've definitely have seen that the requirements are increasing, right? So they're now going beyond just multi-factor authentication or advanced endpoint protection or some of the other things. Now they're looking at, do you have a security operations center with managed detection and response, which is basically 24/7 cybersecurity monitoring? Because what they're looking for is that continuous monitoring, especially not only your local environment, but also your Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace cloud environments, where a lot of the cyber attacks are happening, right? Where you've got the business email compromise, the phishing emails, and all of those things that are coming through. People are clicking on links, and things are happening fast. And if it's happening overnight or on a holiday, without some kind of 24/7 monitoring, by the time you figure it out, it's too late.
I know the speed to attack, the speed to compromise is so dramatically different than the old days of back when a firewall actually meant something in protecting the environment. There's days, weeks, months to bypass the firewall, and now being able to get in a minute or seconds means that all the other chained attacks and things that you can do now occur a lot more frequently.
You're exactly right. Not only is that we now have, completely distributed workforces, right? Where people are working from home. They might be working on their own personal devices. They could be, maybe not even have uh, any basic protections on those systems. And then now they're accessing corporate data, and there's different kinds of risks. That's why the concept of zero trust has become so prevalent over the last couple of years, is because of those distributed environments, and the old ways of doing cybersecurity of firewalls and endpoint protection are not really nearly enough anymore.
Gotcha. Is there any advice you have for people who are pursuing cyber insurance for the first time, or looking for advice on how to fill out an application?
I think the big thing for me is that you want to talk to your IT provider or your internal IT person, and have them help you look at the questionnaire, figure out what you have, what you don't have, figure out what your gaps are, figure out, start figuring out what is it going to cost to get you those gaps filled so that you can qualify for insurance, and then make sure that you have those things in place on an ongoing basis. So
I guess that's always a tough thing for an executive trying to fill out one of those applications. It's kind of like that old joke about, what's the difference between a used car salesperson and an IT salesperson? The difference is a used car salesperson knows when they're lying.
Right.
And I think it's probably kind of true. An executive trying to fill out one of those cyber applications, it's just not their sphere of influence. There's enough specialized expertise that you really have to talk to the people who are keeping up with that and managing it.
And it's just the amount of risk is so severe that the fact that if you have a cyber incident, it could put you out of business. What are the main 4 or 5 things that are going to happen to put you out of business? That's one of them, right? And so you want to protect and mitigate your risk in that area. You want to understand your first party risk. You want to understand your third party risk. You want to understand the shared risk model when you're working with different partners, like maybe a managed IT provider or a vendor like Microsoft 365 or other third parties that are hosting cloud applications for you.
Post-COVID, everybody kind of got a rude awakening on how important technology was to their operations. And, I think just understanding the interrelationship of things, you should be able to document or write it down or whatever. But, technology is so prevalent, so integral to organizations these days that it seems difficult for firms to run without any technology or limited.
It's one of the things that you do have to do is you have to do that risk assessment to understand your critical systems, whatever your ERP or your accounting system or other systems. If they were hit by a cyber attack and you were down for 4 days or 5 days or 2 weeks or whatever, what is going to be the financial impact to your business? And for most businesses, it's going to be pretty significant, right? You might lose clients, you might lose your reputation. You may have to do things like notify your clients that you've been hit by a cyber attack. You may have to notify your employees. You may have to notify vendors. You might lose third-party vendor partners, or there's a lot of different ways that you can be impacted. And so you want to make sure you've got that cyber insurance to help you with your business operations and keep you in business.
Gotcha. Yeah. Any special tips for internal IT or for an external provider who's maybe kind of a smaller organization trying to help their client out, keep up with those things?
And I think one of the things I like to look at is that, if you're a business owner and you've got to have IT, and depending on how many employees you have, if you've got under 50 employees, you're probably only going to be able to afford one IT person. You're going to ask that person to do a lot, right? So you've got to make sure that one of their main job responsibilities is around the cybersecurity protection, getting them, leveled up on their training, getting them with the threat intelligence and really helping them understand all the different things. And then the business owner needs to understand that internal IT person represents first party risk to them. If he makes a mistake, the business owner is responsible for it. So, that's where having third parties like managed IT providers, Microsoft 365, other cloud providers, you can move some of that risk to them because they're going to have their professional liability insurance, and I call it kind of malpractice insurance to protect their clients and everything.
Gotcha. So try to take advantage of what goes on at the pit. Oh wait, I'm sorry. That's a completely different malpractice.
Right.
Let's see. The third metric I have is typically the weight. When I think of the weight, I think of one of the most important things that doesn't seem directly related, but it is directly related to everything. What's the strategy metric that you think leaders should be talking about?
That's a really good question there. So I would think it would be mainly around, understanding what your risk is, how critical are your systems, how many transactions do you do, what is the financial impact, what is the reputational impact if there's some kind of an incident. And an incident could be other things like a system being down or a cloud vendor being down, right? All of those things are going to impact your business. But you need to make sure that where your biggest risk points are at, and then spend most of your money mitigating those risks.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you're talking a little bit about cyber risk management, trying to figure things out there. What are some of the things that do get misunderstood in that?
One of the biggest things that I've seen is that business owners don't have a really good understanding of ransomware. Ransomware is a threat tactic that's been out there for probably 20 years, but it has changed significantly in probably the last 5 to 7 years, and it's escalating now with the advent of AI. But basically, in the old days, if a hacker got access to your network, they would immediately deploy ransomware to encrypt all your data, and then they would demand a ransom. And if you were able to recover from backups or other methods, then you could just give the big middle finger and go about your day. But nowadays, the hackers are one of the most important things about them. They're a lot more patient. So if they're able to get a user to click on a phishing email and then tend to gain persistent foothold into the network, where they can do a lot of reconnaissance, right? They can copy out all of your data. They can know how much cyber insurance coverage you have. They could get a list of all your clients. They get a list of your vendors, a list of your employees. They could then use all of that data after they do the ransomware encryption. They could then determine if you don't want to pay because of the encryption. They can then start extorting you because, hey, we're going to call your customers, we're going to notify your vendors, we're going to tell your employees that their information's been compromised out on the dark web or whatever. So if you get to that point where you see a ransomware on your computer screens, it's pretty much a game over at that point, right? And that's why the SOC MDR, that SOC, the Security Operations Center with the 24/7 monitoring is so critical, because it can detect and block those types of attacks on the front end when we can see that lateral movement inside the network, or maybe somebody copying out a large amount of data that shouldn't be happening, and we can block it before they get to the point where they can do the full scale attack on you with that multiple levels of extortion.
Got you. So, that reconnaissance is a little bit like me in college. It's the day before the test. I know I can buy the book at the bookstore really cheap the day before the test. So I buy the book, and then I'm just cramming everything, just trying to understand the whole layout, understand where the data is, understand what information to know, what's important. They're trying to get all that stuff under their belt. So then when the test comes, when they actually ransom everything, they know everything about you, to know what to ask and where to look and what to do and how to handle things.
That's it.
Gotcha. Now, if you were going through that certain kind of thing, I heard you talk about, the SOC and MDR, but, are there other protections or other things that you recommend that are atypical, or processes that you find that SMBs struggle with?
I think, in today's world, we often hear about cyber attacks, but when we dig into what actually happened, they're really not cyber attacks, but they're failures of a process, especially on the financial side of things, right? So you hear about the CFO that receives an email that purportedly came from the CEO, and it's like, hey, Bob, I'm traveling this week, but I'm jumping on a plane right now, so you won't be able to reach me, but I need you to send this wire transfer and pay this invoice for this vendor. So they make it time-based, they make it urgent. They're not available to talk to you. So, if you're the CEO, a CFO, you feel that pressure, and then you can make a mistake. Send a $400,000 wire that shouldn't have been sent, right? And so that's where a lot of the big risk is in that area.
Gotcha. Yeah, sense of urgency should always be a little bit of a trigger. Just like sellers are trying to close deals by getting buyers with a sense of urgency. All attackers have learned that lesson, and they've tried to incorporate that into their deal making, if you will.
Right. So that's why it's important to have that cyber training program to help the end users, understand what are the risks that are out there, and it needs to be continuous and ongoing, because the threats are changing pretty rapidly. So knowing about what's going on now not just once a year. And then also wrapping in some other things around like dark web monitoring, wrapping in phishing simulation tests that will see if your users are going to click on an email. And then, if they do, have that conversation with them. Hey, Fred, we sent out a simulated email, phishing email, and you clicked on it. And, here's the reasons why that's a bad thing, right? If that had been a real phishing email, you could have opened up the network, or you could have installed malware, or any other number of things.
Now, on I guess in the vein of cyber risk management, I guess is there one specific area or one thing that organizations do or SMBs do where they're kind of missing the ball on the whole risk management side of things?
I think one of the big things is that the small business owner looks at cyber insurance as just strictly a cost, right? And what they're misunderstanding is that there's a lot of benefits to having cyber insurance. And the first part of that is they're going to give you a whole team of resources to help you respond and to recover from a cyber attack. And business owners don't always recognize that. So understanding that they're going to have legal teams out there, they're going to have cyber forensics that can help figure out how did it happen. Instant or excuse me, recovery teams that can help recover from things that are happening. So incident response is a very expensive kind of thing. If you got cyber insurance that can help you cover that, that will reduce the amount of impact on your business and just the stress on everybody inside of your business.
Just as a dollar figure, is there kind of a rough estimate on kind of what a simple forensics situation might incur for somebody?
It's definitely 5 figures. Most of the time, probably going to be closer to 6 figures for sure.
Gotcha. So I heard you say that people only see the cost. How do they trade that off? How does an executive not just see the cost? How do they estimate the risk?
Well, I think a lot of it just comes from trying to become a cybersecurity leader yourself, right? If you're a business owner and you adhere to the same policies and controls and everything that everybody else is doing, and then you're talking to your staff about that and everything, and you're showing them what that looks like, then you can really understand what that looks like. And then having those conversations with your insurance broker to understand what are the benefits that you actually get, looking past the upfront dollar signs of what it's going to cost, to actually looking at the benefits and the risk management that it's going to help you with.
So what do you say to somebody who says, why would anybody target us? We're not exactly Fort Knox.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I probably hear most often from business owners. We're too small. Nobody's going to come after us. But the reality is with the automation that cyber attackers have access to, they can literally spray a lot of attacks over a lot of businesses. And so why wouldn't they attack you? So because they know the reality is that you're going to have a weaker defense, you're going to have a limited budget, you're not thinking about cyber risk very much, you're not going to have a lot of the tools that enterprise have. So why so many attacks target SMBs today.
Gotcha. So the attackers are hoping just don't manage cyber risk, just emotionally support it and hope it behaves.
Yeah. Bury your head in the sand and for the best.
Now, are there any other, I think for me, the hardest thing for an executive is trying to figure out where to start. If they're not security minded, is there something you do or suggest to an executive, how to maybe not be a technical security person, but be a risk person?
Yeah, I think some easy things are, subscribing to some threat intelligence feeds that are designed specifically for, non-technical, leaders. I think that's a real easy one, so they can kind of start learning some of the lingo,
Get the news, learn the lingo.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's talking to you and you don't understand what they're talking about, you're just going to tune it out, right? So if you start learning the language and start learning some of those TLAs, those 3-letter acronyms out there, that come up in the IT world, you can kind of getting a better handle on things. That's probably where I would start, and then from there, make sure that said that you're following the cybersecurity policies, you're taking the cybersecurity training, you're part of the phishing test, you're looking at your dark web results, your credentials are out there, you're using, maybe you're using a password manager and properly, using unique passwords across all the different websites and applications that you use out there. So there's a lot that you can do, but if you start doing some of those things, what you're going to start finding is that you're going to get ahead of the game a little bit, and you're going to understand more about technology, you're going to understand more about cyber risk, and you're going to become a little more productive as you get in there.
Yeah, and I guess if you're an executive, you've gonna have done that journey before. I'm guessing that most leaders, when they first got into being leaders in organizations, maybe they weren't, maybe they didn't have any legal skills. So they start talking with an attorney, they start learning a little bit of the lingo, start learning the questions to ask. And, at some point, then they're reviewing contracts a little bit on their own and asking advice and back and forth. Or, maybe it's on the accounting side. They start off not knowing much about accounting. Maybe they were sales or operations. They ran the business. Then they're having to read a financial, understand gap assessment, just all the different things from the accounting side. And it's a normal course of being an executive. You're always kind of pulling yourself outside your field of expertise to make sure you're handling all the things that the business needs.
Absolutely.
Now, as far as the kind of the costs, you mentioned, I guess ransomware, and it's been around for a while. Or they're like we saw in 2025.
Yeah, I think is definitely one of the top threats. Emails and business email compromise. They're probably in not only the volume but also in their sophistication levels. Using AI to make those phishing emails look a lot more legitimate. They're better written and all of those things, even though they might be sent from a foreign country. And of course, another area that is a very big risk is in the supply chain. When you're working with third-party vendors up and down your supply chain, above you or below you, depending on what they're managing things, could represent a big risk to you. So, in fact, one of the key stats I've seen recently is that 60% of breaches originate from third-party vendors. So,
can you give some examples of some of the different types of vendors that turned out to be risk areas for organizations that they didn't foresee or didn't think about?
Yeah, if you're outsourcing your backups to a cloud provider, or you're outsourcing a software application to a SaaS cloud provider, a managed IT provider, managed cybersecurity. There's lots of different ones, but there's also lots of other vendors that are just in your general supply chain and overall. They could be providing parts to your organization. You might be providing parts to as a subcontractor up to a primary contractor. So there are lots of different areas happening for sure.
Oh, that's a good point. Not just looking down to who's supplying you as a threat, but also looking up to see, who your clients are and customers, because you could be a target because of someone that you work with.
Yeah, they might gain access to your clients and then sending information their email system, or trying to them and get you involved in the middle of a some type of an event, and then all of a sudden you've got reputational possibly. You could have a legal impact. There's a lot of different things that could happen out of that. So it's definitely something you have to think about.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of costs. I heard you say up to six figure, 5 figure to 6 figure for just the forensic side of thing, but all those other costs, it's hard to interpret. It's starting to sound like my cholesterol levels or something. Just
Right.
big numbers all across the board.
A lot of big numbers out there. When you start talking about the legal cost, you may have or some kind of about your reputation. You got your incident response. You got all of these things, and they all have to be under that umbrella of the legal thing there as well. So it's definitely not an easy thing to be done, and those are things you want to try to avoid if you can at all costs. So.
Now, if an organization is struggling to get cyber insurance, maybe they had an incident and, now there's probable they'll get hit again or whatever, and maybe their dollar is high. Are there other options than insurance for organizations that these could look at?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely, kind of I wouldn't call it self-insure, but you could do a few things. One thing that you could do is you could put in excellent cybersecurity that protects your environment, right? So that you're protected across the board. If you can do that, then that'll be a big help to your organization. The other thing that you can do is you can contract with a forensics firm and a incident response firm, that can be on call if there is some kind of thing. So that way you've got those resources. You're not trying to find them, in the middle of the night or, first thing in the morning, and you don't know who to call or what to call. That way you at least got some things in there. Getting an incident response plan with that information in there as well helps tremendously.
Gotcha. Now, aside from ransomware, are there other attacks or threats out there that you consider to be the top concern areas for SMBs?
There's quite a few out there. Talked about ransomware. We talked about phishing, business email compromise, supply chain vulnerabilities, risks, those kind of things. But also threats, right? An insider be contacted by a cyber criminal and say, "Hey, could you help us gain access to your network?" Internal person could just be disgruntled and may try to do something. So a lot that goes into it. So it's the board. You have to worry about those things. Things could be like you've got all these different systems out there to be patched and updated. It's not just your computers, but you've got firewalls, you've got network switches, you've got wireless access points, you've got software applications. There's lots and lots of things out there, and every day there's new vulnerabilities discovered in all different kinds of systems. And so trying to stay up in touch with all of those and keeping those done. It all starts with having a good inventory of your IT systems so that what threat intelligence you need to follow, and so that way you get those alerts when a new vulnerability is discovered, and then you can care of it.
Gotcha. Make sure all of your stuff is maintained and make sure all your employees gruntled, I guess.
Yeah,
Would be, is
exactly.
that what you would want? Just everyone gruntled?
I would definitely want the people to be gruntled.
Okay.
Disgruntled is a bad thing.
Now, are there any things out there that you hear that you think are kind of hype? You've talked about the threats that keep people up at night, but are there things out there that you think are a little bit hype oriented?
Well, that's a good question. Trying to think of what some of those things might be. Maybe I guess just going back to that. Hey, we're not going to be hit. That's just not a reality. That's the thing, that almost every SMB is going to be hit. Probably if you look at over a 5-year period, everybody's going to get hit some way, either a business email compromise or the dreaded ransomware attack or some other kind of that's going to happen. It's going to cause them reputation, cost.
Yeah, I guess kind of the trouble with the modern danger is that doesn't just it no longer rattles chains. It just kind of politely asks you for your password now.
All right.
Now, cyber insurance, about the upstream things. Do you find that organizations are asking their vendors to have cyber insurance, or what are you seeing in that relationship up and down for organizations?
Absolutely. That's a great to talk about, Steve, is that not only are your clients or your vendors that are below you in your supply chain, if you have cyber insurance, they may also ask that you have certain minimum levels of cybersecurity controls in place, like that multi-factor authentication, some of those things, because they have to meet it either upstream or downstream on their end. So that means that other parties in their supply chain have to meet it as well. So it's not only actually with cyber risk, but it also could be good for business development. So
Okay, so use it, turn it around. If you're investing in it, pitch it in your sales strategy that, hey, we've
yeah,
got cyber insurance. Okay, got it.
absolutely. Not only do we have cyber insurance, but we have all these cyber, controls in place to protect our business and to protect you. So.
Got it. Now, what about for in my experiences, a lot of organizations struggle with just IT policies in general. Do you have any guidance there for people who are concerned about security, concerned about risk, but haven't even started policies?
Yeah, and I think that is a major issue in SMBs in general. Is that policies and documentation is usually lacking. And if you're a small business, I highly recommend having just a handful of policies. Don't be trying to really have a big expensive catalog of policies. So you probably need like an acceptable use policy. Need to incorporate social media and AI into those policies so that your users know what's acceptable and what's not. Because that's where most of your risk is going to come from, is from your end users, your employees. Then beyond that, I would say the other big policy to have is probably going to be your incident response policy. So on if you have cyber insurance or not, if you have cyber insurance, most of it's going to be listing out how to contact your cyber insurance carrier, how to open a case, what's your policy number, all the different things like that, what resources they have available at your disposal, how does that happen and work, and all of those things. Whereas if you don't have cyber insurance, you're going to probably list out, those third parties that you've contracted with or know about, that you've got that in place. So.
Incident response, there's all kinds of numbers out about that yes, everyone's going to be hit at some point, and you have to have incident response, to kind of deal with that particular thing. But can you give the audience an idea of, I don't know if you've done research on this or been part of a specific incident or whatever, but can you take some people through a little bit of what to expect in a cyber incident and why that insurance policy or plan is so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some things that there are some misunderstandings of IT people in general, right? Is that, oh, you're an IT person, you can do anything and everything related to IT, and that's generally, obviously is not the case here. But what happens is that if you have a managed IT provider, or if you have an internal IT person, you're going to expect them to do your incident response. Well, guess what? That's the thing, is that they're not going to be experts at incident response. Incident response is a very specific, skill set that's completely different than doing day-to-day IT support and everything. So you can't expect your internal IT person or your managed IT provider to be doing incident response, and definitely not going to be doing cyber, right? Because that cyber forensics could end up leading to a court case or something later if the cyber criminals are caught or whatever. So you've got to know, first off, you're going to probably engage with your cyber insurance. We're going to have like concierge person that's going to walk you through the process. One of the first calls that you're probably going to have is probably going to be with the legal counsel. And then they're going to start working in the other the incident response team and the cyber forensics. They're going to tell you things not to do, right? I know it's going to be really tempting to turn everything off, but you could be destroying, evidence of how this happened, right? So then hopefully the big thing is they're going to help you understand is that, hey, there's a plan. We can do this, but it's going to be painful, but we're going to have a step-by-step process, and we're going to protect you, legally and financially.
And about how long does that, is there a lot of variability, or is there a typical cycle or period of time that one could expect that to last for, kind of a smaller organization, let's say 50 to 100 users?
Yeah, I think today, as more people, systems and applications and data to the cloud, not all of their data is not in one place. You can continue to function at some level, which is good. Maybe some systems are down, but not all of them are down. So that helps your you're able to have at least a skeleton operations. But if you have a lot of servers in-house and all of those systems are encrypted, you might be hard down for a number of days or even weeks, which can be very painful. So that, you've got you get, basically recovered, or, at least to the point where you can do that. It can happen, usually within a week or 2 weeks after you kind of figure out where you're at and how you're gonna handle things. But then after that, it's still going to be, several weeks of tying up all the loose ends. You're going to have to understand from your legal counsel, did we, have a data breach that needs to be reported to the state or to other agencies, or, to, some other government agency or something like that. And then what do I have to do from that? Do I need to send letters? Do I need to do, what all the different things are? But they're going to help you with all of those things. That's the great part about that cyber insurance.
Gotcha. And then, in your mind, we're just starting 2026. I've asked you questions about year and what things went on. Or are there any expectations or thoughts or trends you expect to see in 2026?
I think there's a very good chance that the AI tools getting more efficient and then being used by cyber criminals, that you could see an increase in attacks. You could see a increase in the sophistication level of those attacks. You could see an increase in the effectiveness of those attacks. In other words, where they can successfully put you out of money. That just means is that we're going to continue to have an increase in your cyber risk.
So what's an organization to do to help out with that?
Well, I think there's a lot of things you can do. You can have trusted partners. So if you're choosing a managed IT provider, you really want to understand, how are they protecting themselves? What kind of cyber insurance and professional liability insurance do they have to protect their clients? You can do some internal things like assessments. Can look at any that you need to meet up, obtain certification with, figure out what those are, because those will help you a lot of times with the cybersecurity piece of things. And then, of course, old concept of defense in depth, layered security, still important today. We want to protect and things before things happen. With our endpoint protection and our firewalls and our cybersecurity monitoring, multi-factor authentication. We want to respond if there's something happening with our endpoint protection and other tools. We also want to have our recovery tools like backups and everything in place. So, and then, having that incident response planning in place, and then conducting an annual tabletop exercise to, run through a simulated attack and figuring out, what are the nuts and bolts of what that looks like. So, and then the probably the biggest one thing for me is that, getting a 24/7 SOC MDR cybersecurity monitoring, where you've got that proactive threat detection, an attack on the front end, respond to it and remediate it before it becomes a major issue, right? Block them from copying out all your data, block them from before they're able to even think about ransomware, but also on the cloud side of that as well, they're going to be able to, accounts if been compromised, or thing that might lead to a business email compromise. So,
gotcha. Yeah, I guess that would be the dynamic following along with your theme that everyone's going to eventually have an incident. That instead of trying to focus on blocking everything, how do I react once something gets through? Via the incident response plan and tools, definitely makes sense. And I guess that also jives with your idea that security should be layered, like parfait, layered like parfait,
right.
All across things.
I love parfaits. And then the last thing I would just say is, don't wait for a breach to learn the hard way. Cyber risk is business risk. So, you want to partner with experts, secure your insurance, and then implement whatever proactive cyber protections that you need.
Gotcha. Now, as we start to come near to a little bit of the edge of our time, one of the things I always like to do is, I treat it like a doctor's appointment. That visit summary. If a business owner or executive, kind of remembered one leadership lesson from today's conversation, something that should shape kind of how they manage risk moving forward. What do you think that should be?
I think the number one thing that a small business owner or leader can do to protect themselves is to be the cybersecurity leader themselves. Follow the processes, follow the policies. Take the training. Learn cyber threat intelligence and learn the lingo and make it a priority so that your employees, your partners see that you're serious about it.
I guess definitely as a leader myself over the years, I've learned that if I'm not doing it, then no one else in the organization is going to be doing it. So I've got to set the gold standard and be that change agent to kind of help make sure the organization knows how serious I am about a particular topic or trend or concern.
Absolutely.
All right. Aside from the one big leadership lesson, what I look for prescriptions as well. What other little recommendations do you have for people that could help them become better at risk management, as a process within their organization?
Well, one of the things that I recommend for small business owners, especially if they either have internal IT or outsourced IT or managed IT, is that they periodically have some type of security assessments done. Some kind of doesn't have to be super in depth, but something that helps them understand how they're doing at the moment, right? Where am I at this point in time with my cyber protections, and I think if you can do that, it will help you understand, where's my baseline and where I'm at. Is that where I thought I was going to be, or do I got some things to do to improve? And hopefully you'll come out with a punch list of things that you can do, to improve things immediately.
Gotcha. So that external eye, someone to kind of take a step back and look at it from a big picture view and comprehensive instead of up close.
Yeah. Help you understand, what you got, and that way you'll know where you're at.
Now, are there any elements of that risk assessment that you think are more important than the other, or that the leader should be most mindful of?
I think you need to probably understand what your most critical IT assets and systems are. What are your core data sets, core applications, things that are critical to your business, things that if they were implemented or impacted, that there would be a major financial impact to your business. It's on where you can make the biggest on your business.
Gotcha. If you're going to protect the kingdom, know where the crown jewels are.
Yeah, protect the underwear, protect the crown jewels.
Don't protect the underwear, protect the crown jewels. That's
yeah, that could be a new catchphrase.
That's going into my hopper. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be used over and over again for the next 10 years. What else? Other prescriptions or that you have for people out there?
Well, let's think about this. I think we've covered most of everything here. So I think the other thing to take a look at is the thinking about what that financial risk looks like, but don't forget reputational risk and even legal things that can happen. If you're hit by a cyber attack, it could lead to damages to your reputation, but it also could to a client or other party in your supply chain that could lead to lawsuits or those kind of things.
Gotcha. Any other wrap up comments?
I think we've just about covered them all. So just vigilant and protect yourself. Business is your livelihood, and so treat it as such. And that risk is one of the top to a small business, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but I'm sure in other parts of the country as well. So protect yourself.
Gotcha. Now, if somebody wanted to reach out and get a hold of you, what would be the best way to do that to carry on a conversation?
It's real easy. Just you can go to our website, fulcrumgroup.net, or you can email me, David@fulcrumgroup.net, and we'll be happy to to you about just a quick cybersecurity discovery call and see if there's a way that we can help you with an assessment or some other type of service.
All right. And as usual, if you want to reach out to me, I'll put the links in the content, but all spelled out at fulcrumgroup.net. You can also reach me on LinkedIn. I'll include it in the links, but it's Steve Meek CISSP is the public part of the URL there. And hey, it brings us to the end of our doctor's appointment. You made it through today, David.
All right.
I'm going to be able to discharge you and feel good about it.
All right.
Well, today's conversation that was just a reminder that cyber risk isn't just an IT problem. It's a leadership and risk and deserves real attention. So if today's discussion hit home, yourself a solid, get intentional about protecting your business, your people, and your future. And don't forget to hit up your friends. Suggest they also subscribe to the Talk to the Doc podcast on your favorite or their favorite podcast platform, so they can also not miss the visit. Hey, then if you do that, then all of you can kind of band together and exchange ideas. There's nothing wrong with being a little bit collaborative. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'm your host, Steve the Dr. Meek. Thanks, David, and the doctor is out. See you next time.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, David. Take care.